Callahan didn't know his limits, and that made all the difference. See you in the next story.